Good afternoon, everyone. I am your teacher Des Tuyo. For today's discussion, we have Media and Information Technology, Bridges for Communication and Information for Media and Information Literacy subject. So this afternoon, we will be talking about communication. When we say communication, it is simply the act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. It is a process of sending and receiving messages through verbal or nonverbal means, including speech or oral communication, writing and graphical representation such as infographics, maps, and charts, as well as signs, signal, and behavior. That is according to 2020 of North KISS. In general, when we say communication, it refers to the people or group of people imparting or exchanging messages through speaking, writing, gesture, or even using other symbolic forms by utilizing a variety of channels for sending and receiving. Then, communication plays an essential role in our daily lives. You think about the many ways by which you send a message to somebody. In a face-to-face communication, you try to use your body to say something, stress a point, or even to express emotion. You can speak with a louder voice to emphasize a point. You can cover your face to express sadness or chuckles to express amusement. Your shoulder shrugging while probably you say has given up or simply you do not know. In case you are not able to communicate in a face-to-face manner, you can also send letter, an electronic email, or use one of many platforms of the internet for chatting. We have the types of communication. First is interpersonal communication. By Thoreau of 2009, interpersonal communication as a form of communication that involves two or three individuals interacting through the use of their voices and bodies. While the second type of communication, mediated interpersonal communication, when the technology stands in between the parties communicating and becomes the channel by which the message is sent or received. So there are times when you cannot and need not to talk face to face, so communication become mediated through the use of devices such as pen, telephone, or computer. Lastly, we have organizational communication. When we say organizational communication, it is the type of interaction on a working environment. Let's say, for example, an email sent by the school principal to the academic personnel to communicate a new policy is already an example of organizational communication. So this message flow through faculty meetings, memorandum posted in the bulletin boards for the personnel to see, or in conferences and seminars. So all these forms of communication delivered to face or through mediating channel involves messages. We have 8 essential components. First is source. The source imagines, creates, and sends the message. In a public speaking situation, the source is the person giving the speech, or she conveys the message by sharing new information with the audience. So the speaker also conveys a message through his or her tone of voice, body language, and choice of clothing. So this process of turning thoughts into communication. Secondly, we have message. When we say message, it is the stimulus or meaning produced by the source of the receiver or the audience. When you plan to give a speech or write a report, your message may seem to be only the words you choose that will convey your meaning. The words are brought together with grammar and organization. You may choose to save your most important point for last. Third one is channel. The channel is the way in which a message or a message travels between source and receiver. That is on What is Communication of 2012. So there is multiple communication channel available for us today. So which includes face-to-face conversation, letters, telephone calls, text message, email, the internet, which is including social media such as Facebook, Twitter, blog, tweets, radio, and TV, written letters, brochures, and so on and so forth. Fourth one is receiver. The receiver receives the message from the source, analyzing and interpreting the message in ways both intended and unintended by the source. So in order to receive the message, he or she listens, sees, touches, smells, or even tastes to receive a message. The process of turning communication into thoughts is called decoding. So the receiver decodes the message. So when we say decoding, the transmitted impulses are converted to sign as the brain perceives and processes it. So the reverse of encoding is decoding. That's why it is the process by which the receiver translates the source thoughts and idea so they can have meaning. So the process can be purely physiological or when the brain, through its own processes, interprets the message. Feedback. When we say feedback, it is the response generated by the message that was sent to the receiver. It can either be immediate or delayed. So when the receiver responds to the source intentionally or unintentionally, that is giving feedback. Feedback is composed of message the receiver sent back to the sources. It can be verbal or non-verbal. So all this feedback signals allowed to source to see how well, how accurately, or how poorly and accurately the message was received. So the feedback also provides an opportunity for the receiver or audience to ask for clarification, to agree or disagree, or to indicate that the source could make the message more interesting. We have environment. Actually, the environment is the atmosphere, physical and psychological, where an individual sends and receives message. This can include the tables, the chairs, lighting. Environment is your surrounding. The surrounding of an individual sends and receives the message. So the room itself is an example of the environment. So the environment can also include factors like formal dress that may indicate whether a discussion is open and caring or more professional and formal. So people may be more likely to have an intimate conversation when they are physically close to each other and less likely when they can only see each other from across the room. So in that case, they may text each other, itself an intimate form of communication. So the choice to text is influenced by the environment. Context. The context of communication interaction involves the setting, scene, and expectation of the individual involved. So, a professional communication context may involve business suits or environmental cues that directly or indirectly influence expectation of language and behavior among the participants. Interference or the noise. This is anything that blocks or changes the source's intended meaning of the message. For example, if you drove a car to work or school, chances are were you surrounded by noise. So car horns, you have the billboards, or perhaps the radio in your car interrupted your thoughts or your conversation with a passenger. Psychological noise is what happens when the thoughts occupy your attention while you are hearing or reading a message. Stereotypes, reputation, assumptions, and biases are examples of psychological noise which affect communication interferences, which can come from other sources too. Perhaps you are hungry and your attention to your current attention interference with your ability to listen. So, when we say media and information influence to communication, media and information technology really plays a vital role in globalization. So, in November of 8 of 2013, the Typhoon Yolanda lashed out in the province of Leyte and Samar. So, one of the strongest storms ever recorded in history. Typhoon Yolanda killed an estimated 10,000 people. So, what could account for the huge number of dead, missing, or injured? So, while it is true that the extent and magnitude of the expected typhoon was communicated as part of free disaster readiness, there was a term that did not get across the intended receiver. So, again, media and information technology plays a vital role in the globalization. So, media can be good channel for communication. Sure. And it is also a good source of information. They also pose some threats to user. We cannot avoid it. Among these are as follows. Number 1, media becomes a good source misinformation and fake news, which is nowadays when you listen to the news or you watch on the news, you cannot barely say that it is really the true story. Through media, it helps improve the way we communicate. And lastly, media can pose medical, social, and psychological issues. So that's all for this day, and thank you for listening and watching. Do not forget to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. I'm your teacher Des. To you.